Good morning, Chalk Mercantile and Surface Anthology. I have begun, as you can see, well, where we left off yesterday is I painted this round wood piece with milk paint, Miss Mustard Seed milk paint, and I did go in a little bit after I saw you guys and did a little splattering fly speck with the light color just to give that board a little bit more dimension. And now I'm playing around with my molds. So you get the gist. So remember, I'm making a wreath, and this is just going to be filled with iron orchid molds. And I also did something yesterday off camera that I'm going to show you guys. So I'm just kind of playing around with them, placing them, but I want to show you how I make these before, because these are all unglued, and I'm going to show you how you make the iron orchid molds if you haven't done that before. So you need iron orchid clay, a piece of, for what we're doing, let me move all my stuff out of the way, a piece of waxed paper and some cornstarch. And I also use like this fluffy brush. Oh, light today. I thought it was sunny today, so hopefully you guys could see this. But here's our really fluffy brush that I'm using just to coat the inside of the molds. You need a mold. This is the iron orchid mold. It's a silicone mold. And you can actually use this for baking. You could bake cookies in these. A lot of sugar artists use these because they're just gorgeous. Don't mix the two though. Have one for sugar arts and one for your crafts. So what we do, take your cornstarch and you just dust the insides of the little molds. So I'm using the Laurel, my favorite. And you really have to do this because they will stick if you don't. And I've used milk paint powder. In a pinch, it worked. I didn't have my cornstarch with me, so that's what I used. Get out your iron orchid. This is air dry clay. It's so nice. And I'm just gonna kind of roll it into these tubes to go into the long Laurel shapes. And you just press it in. Oh, and you also need a straight edge. This is important. I'm probably getting cornstarch all over my face. I'm just using this little wooden popsicle stick. You need a straight edge, something that's plastic, a credit card would do. Don't use anything metal, because there's a little tiny ridge around all these molds and the metal can gouge. So I'm using this little wood popsicle stick. All right, so once you have it filled and it's all pressed in, and you can see there's kind of a direction with the leaves going this way, going up, the leaves pointing, kind of work with the design, not against it, and you just pull off the excess clay. And it's really fast. And I'm kind of going from the middle out. Bottom, and you just bend the mold. Look, it's already coming out, and you just pull the mold out. Put it down on your wax paper so it doesn't stick. That also keeps it kind of moist. If you put it on paper, it's gonna dry out faster. My dogs are barking. All right, here we go with this side. Now I use regular old Aleene's tacky glue to glue down these molds. Some people use the Tight Bond glue. I've also used on raw wood, I've used, what is it called? The Elmer's wood glue. The tacky glue is nice because it's thick and it doesn't slide around as much as like Elmer's. Elmer's would be fine, but things can move. The tacky glue kind of holds it down. Okay, there's our other side of the mold. When you are done with your clay, you have got to keep it airtight. If it starts to dry, and I know because this has happened to me, if you leave a little open or you're playing with it and you leave the bag open, it'll start to dry and you cannot reconstitute it. I've tried and it doesn't work. All right, so you see I put my laurel branches down, and then I'm gonna move this in a second. I want to show you something else I did. I took my little pine cones and I made a little slurry of Venetian plaster. This is the Amy Howard at Home Venetian plaster. I think any plaster would work. I had this on hand, so I dipped them in and let them dry overnight. So I'm gonna work these into my design. I did go out yesterday looking for acorns, didn't find any. And I still have to figure out the oak leaves. I might make my own little design of an oak leaf and just roll out the clay and cut it out and maybe bend it so I can use it in my wreath. But today I want to show you the basic design and how we glue. So let's bring this back over. Okay. And I'm going to take these off. And you do work with them. You glue them down when they're wet. Because if these dry flat and you want them to kind of bend around a design, when they're dry, it's not going to work. So you work with them while they're wet. I even paint them while they're wet. Okay, I'm going to move. All right. So where's my Aleene's? I need my tacky glue. And one of my little bowls. Actually, I'm going to take off the top and just put a blob out. And you are going to need a little brush. I brushed this on. And some water for your brush. I really should clean off that so it doesn't get glued on. But I love this Aleene's tacky glue. I use it for everything. All right, and then put the little cap on. And for my glue brush, I just use a little natural bristle brush. It's really stiff. You don't want anything that's gonna flop under the weight of this glue. This is heavy duty glue. And you're going to take your mold, I turn it over and you brush this glue on. And try to get it everywhere so you have a good contact with your surface. My hands are slippery from a mixture of the clay, the cornstarch. So trying to hold this mold steady. Okay, so there's our mold. course, I'm making this with the grain going vertically. And if I were really being a conscientious designer, what I would have done and what I would tell you guys to do, take a piece of chalk and draw out your major lines of where you want your molds to go. So I'm just obviously going to be winging this. But remember, this is all going to be filled with all kinds of stuff. So the more the better. All right. And I'd love to show you, but if you had a piece of chalk, you would draw your design, put your wreath, your design up against a wall and walk away and look at your design and make sure that you love it, you know, and then you could just wipe away the chalk if you don't like where it is and adjust. Okay, other side. You could use, like, as we get into this and I start to put in, you know, my acorns, if I could find them. I might have to go to a craft store, order them. I think the deer ate them all. I guess you could use a hot glue gun. I've never done that. I love, or I feel like the glue gets into the clay, kind of makes a bond. Sometimes I've used a hot glue gun and it just will come off in a blob after it hardens. So if any of you have ever used a hot glue gun and the Iron Orchid clays, let me know in the comments. All right, and here's our other. Now, as you're working with these molds, they might crack, right? As they're drying, they get a little, you know, they start to crack. You could just push them right back together and use them. You could cut these apart. So say as I'm building this wreath, I just want these little buds. I could either just fill up the little bud part of the mold, or I could cut this up. So don't be afraid to do that. All right, let's try another one here before it dries. See, I have to, this is where if I was a floral designer, I want to really build up my round shape so I have something to follow. And I tend to really, really love symmetry, and sometimes it gets me into trouble when things are too, like, you know, with floral design, we all know that to be asymmetrical now is very, very in. But I need to establish like a circle here. And I love that you could bend your molds. Okay, one more. But you could play around with the shapes. And now I'm getting away from a circle. All right, let's get these second ones in. And then I'll start to fill it in. And I have used, as long as you keep your brushes clean, I use scrubby soap. Everybody knows I love it. And I love it because it keeps my brushes really, really clean without leaving a film. But that's what I use for all my brushes. But you gotta have some water with you when you're working with glue. In case you leave this brush for a long time, throw it in the water. And you should, after I do the second one, you should have, actually the fourth one, we need to go back and kind of press around the edges to make sure we have good contact. Maybe Iron Orchid will be coming out with a leaf mold. I love, love, love oak leaves. I just think they're beautiful. I would love to have that. Okay. So I'm trying to make this not symmetrical. All right. I dropped my cloth, but now what you have to do is just press down on your molds so they make good contact on the edges, and you'll see it just drop right down. It makes me think of the plaster work that they used to do on ceilings and moldings, because I think they did, a lot of it was these kind of appliques that they would add for the smaller details. I mean, that's such an amazing art form. All right, I'm going to add in some leaves like this just to give it some shape. And these, by the way, you could make these molds and just let them dry. Put a little hole, like with this one, you'd put a little hole at the top, let it dry, and it would be a gorgeous ornament. You could paint it, put a little leaf on it. You know I love my gold leaf. All right. And I'm going to leave some space because remember, we're going to be layering. Okay. I'm getting gluey. And then the rest is just going to be me arranging these molds. And I'll see if I could show you guys, if I could put in a pine cone so you could see what that looks like. Well, I'm going to make my circle with these. I have to use them before they dry out. And I'm able to see my big picture by looking at the camera, but you really want to keep kind of stepping away and looking at what you're making. All right, and then I'll put all the leaves. I might be breaking this one up. But you get the drift. So I'm going to make, this is the base of the design. So I'm going to finish this. I'm not going to make you guys go through that. But let's look at these little pine cones. So I think that I would put these in. I'm actually not going to glue this in now because it's too soon in the design. But look at how those are just going to kind of fit in. I'll hold this up to the camera. And look at how that starts to fill in, and it starts to become very, very three-dimensional. So let me hold that up. There are our little pine cones. How pretty is that? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to say goodbye. I'm going to continue to work on the base. And if I get to some other, like a real breaking point, I'll come back live. I'll turn on my camera. But really what I want to do before tomorrow is get this whole base of the wreath done. I'm going to see if I could get some more of these pine cones plastered and go out and see if I could get some oak leaves or make my own oak leaf template. And then I'll show you guys tomorrow how I do that, because I really want to add some oak leaves to this. All right? So let me know in the comments if you have any questions. Have you ever tried doing anything like this? Are you getting ready for the holidays? This is clearly going to be a holiday type of wreath, though I'm not going to make it, you know, just Christmas, because I feel like I might want to leave this up longer. But let me know. Have a wonderful day, and I will see you guys soon.